here. All right, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your preacher Moss, host of the SOS ShOUT show. Hope that you're having a wonderful day. I want to give a shout out to the Cade family, the Cade Samuels family, for allowing me to do my telecast from their apartment here in downtown Northwest Washington, D.C. off of 14th. And you down in the heart of Washington, D.C., right around the corner from Lincoln Theater and Ben's Chili Bowl. Big shout out. Hey, I want to give a thanks for people being really confident assessments of what we were talking about last week. And it really did permeate as we begin to look at the news moving forward. Again, begin to see some of these things. And I really, when I say things, it's sort of like some of the philosophical understandings that we had, some of the, I don't want to say very rosy understanding of politics, but I think we also begin to see the congealing of the facts that politics, war, racism, Islamophobia, even anti-Semitism are beginning to find root and growing, if you will, producing, if you will, very, very strange fruit. So today's topic today, brothers, is just Islamophobia for Dummies. Now, someone asked me, what does that mean? Islamophobia for Dummies. Well, it's easy for me to say Islamophobia for Dummies, or Islamophobia is for dummies. And what I wanted to do today was actually begin to take a little bit of a deep dive, if you will, in the context of how it's being perceived. You know, there's two sides to this whole Islamophobia, the argument for Islamophobia. Either you are or you're against. At the same time, when we talk about anti-Semitism, it's either you are or you don't matter. Now, the whole conversation has been mixed. It's been confusing for quite a number of years. Islamophobia goes back beyond 9/11. I think people need to understand that. And that is when you start framing the image or framing characteristics around religion that aren't really realistically true and don't really tie into reality for the most part. For the most part, we're talking about images, we're talking about politics that tie into a very, very loose interpretation of a religion. Just the same as racism. You know, there used to be a joke. Red Fox had a great joke back in the day. He said he read in the newspaper, the New York Times, that 8 out of 10 black men carry knives. He said, I gotta go get mine. This is the philosophy that we're in today. That now the philosophy of Red Fox saying I gotta get mine, there are people who on the other side of that argument who produce that argument and are going, I produced the argument, I've lobbied for it, I've made a situation that really isn't necessarily truthful, I've now made it something that people consider in the longer art form, I won't say the longer art form, but the political action of storytelling in the context that it moves and positions individuals, societies, policies, laws to benefit those people. Now, I want to make sure I thank everybody out in Instagram land. Listen, I haven't figured out everything, but I'm just going to thank y'all in advance for jumping on. We'll figure this out. Sister Tana won't be able to join us today. She's busy. Shout out to Sister Tana. But listen, I want everybody to kind of just think about this. I'm really thinking about writing this book called Islamophobia for Dummies, or Islamophobia is for Dummies. Either way, because it takes a narrative of people who are two things in my mind. Number one, insecure. Number two, they haven't been successful. Number one, insecure. Number two, they haven't been successful. Let me explain insecure for you. Insecure means that our relationship at some point in time, particularly racism in the United States, markedly dealing with white supremacy, if you will. It's this idea, brothers and sisters, that somehow, some way, whatever action that you do is not a real action, it's not a valuable action unless it benefits me. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I said these people are unsuccessful. What it means is if you remove yourself from the equation, like if you remove yourself from the equation of Europeans, if you remove yourself from the equation of Zionists, if you remove yourself from the equation of racists, you will find fundamentally people who were not unsuccessful. They were not successful at what they were doing. I mean, not just being unsuccessful, I'm talking about generationally being unsuccessful. And at some point in time, you say that's the law of the land. That's what happens. These people are either going to be successful or unsuccessful. But now you have a situation where people change the rules. They, as they said, move the goalposts. They shift the narrative of the paradigm whereby because you're successful, somehow, some way, you are denying them success. You know what I'm saying? Somehow, some way, because you're successful, you are denying them success. The other option is, so if you're being successful, then somehow it threatens their success, which is a conundrum if you don't have any success. All right, omit the logic here. What I'm saying is you have people having these kind of conversations amongst themselves, away from the general population, the population reason and logic, and they have bestowed themselves and installed this philosophy, which is now ruining our country. So, we're going to be back here on ShOUT Show. I want you guys to take a break. I'll be back. Don't you move. It's a ShOUT Show. Preacher Moss. We're talking about Islamophobia for Dummies. Everybody, we're back. It's Preacher Moss on the ShOUT Show. We're talking about Islamophobia for Dummies. When I'm talking about Islamophobia for Dummies, I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about Islamophobia is for dummies. This is not about the people who are rational thinkers, logical thinkers, but I believe we need to have that conversation. A really deep down discussion about the people who are not rational thinkers, the people who are not capable of rational thought, logic, mercy, compassion. Listen, when we get into these spaces, it becomes more and more apparent to me. I'm not going to say to anybody else, but it becomes more and more apparent to me that this is a bit of a process. This is what's being taught in American homes that we can see. This is being taught in politics, the politics behind doors that produces particular type of policies. I think even more so, you're beginning to see it more in schools. That we don't teach courage in school. The removal of God in school, a lot of people say, oh, that's religion, da-da-da. No. It was the idea that freedom of religion sparked a contention that people can get courageous behind religion. People can build themselves up around religion, so you take it out of school. And now you have these young minds that are in school who are beholden to teachers. They're beholden to books. They're beholden to policies and curriculums that don't necessarily reflect their way of living, don't necessarily reflect their core values. And you talk about, if you go to church, if you go to Juma, you're talking about 5 days in school of this indoctrination, as opposed to 1 hour at the masjid or 2.5 hours at the church. You begin to see that society has changed. We've produced these masses of people who are now young minds, now the voting minds, now the older minds. Now you begin to see that the tide has turned. People ask about society. People ask me, they ask me, this is what happened to society. Well, we produce legislation that we produce legislation that tells people, don't think. We say, don't think, we'll think for you. The whole thing about AI, artificial intelligence, is not the arguments that you're seeing now with ChatGPT. The larger arguments are that we're behind on our own technology. They're dealing with things in Congress and science right now, dealing with the fact that artificial intelligence has turned into real-time intelligence, making decisions, emulating human emotions, emulating human decisions. We're talking about the pluses and the minuses. This is a mind-blowing type of thing. And it bears witness that we would produce technology that could in many ways make us obsolete. My point. Back in the day, we're not talking about the Industrial Revolution, but you're talking about the 50s and the 60s where you started moving things off the assembly line, and there was a thing where men, largely white men, largely white businessmen, shout out to white supremacy, had to make a decision. The decision was looking at the technology that this machine could do the work of 50 workers. Not only do the work of 50 workers, didn't need time off, didn't need to feed it, didn't have to do insurance. This machine was the wave of the future. Given that, the unions back in the day said we have a problem. Either we're going to fight the machines or we're going to see what's left. They said, well, what's going to happen? What happened is they didn't fight the machines. What happened is they opted to get framed. So let me tell you about racism in America, if you want to hear it. And I'm going to give a shout out to my shout out crew in a minute. Let me tell you about racism in America, okay? Racism in America has lent itself to Islamophobia. Now, Islamophobia has gone the same route as technology did in the 50s and 60s for the Muslim audience and the Muslim community. But it found a divide in the Muslim community, and I've said this before, between African American Muslims and indigenous Muslims. This divide is not a religious divide. This divide is an information divide, meaning that you have one group that says, bar technology, this is the way it works, and then you say, well, this is a group that comes, well, these are my relationships, these are my engagements, these are my, I want to say, interactions with the society, and they're totally different. They're totally different. Islam is presented as two different ways. One as a foreign religion, this one as a bit of a rebellious religion. This is a religion for insurgents, for black men to lift themselves up, which America has never, ever forgotten. They have never, ever forgotten. Let me tell you about Islamophobia. And this is why it's redundant. One, the people and the proponents of Islamophobia, if you look across the board, have been looking for opportunities to invoke these type of discussions, these type of laws, these type of politics. I want to say for the last 150 years. This is before the 60s and the 70s. This comes from the Crusades. This comes from before 1948. This is before Palestine. This is a religious grudge, if you will, that the religion, if you will, has sparked a certain type of tenacity, if you will. It sparked a certain type of, let me think about this. In many regards, this religion of Islam has sparked one curiosity, but also skepticism. We now begin to revisit things that have been told to us, whether through religious texts, whether through political action, whether through just basic due diligence on things that are coming to us in our own logical places, positioning, and now people have questions, right? But why would you say Islamophobia? In the tradition of our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, our leader is defined as unlettered. They don't say anything about anybody else's leader being unlettered. Did Jesus have a PhD? We don't know. Was Moses, did Moses tenured? We don't know. What is more and more, and sorry about the noise, they're watching American fiction. What I need to be saying here, which is really, really important, is the questions. The questions have caught up to the logic. That while we couldn't answer questions before, you now have more and more body of evidence that says, wait a minute, let me question what you just said. Let me look at the text. Let me look at how you acted back in the 40s and 50s and the 60s. So now the people that we may have thought somehow heretical, somehow cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, now their logic fits in a lot more. Now the fight or the kickback now is a lot stronger. And let me actually get to some of my folks in the shout out show area. And I'm gonna go over to Instagram too. Please be patient with me. Shout out to Sister Reed. Peace and blessings be upon you. I hope you're doing well. Shout out to Brother Derek. And shout out to my main man, Duad. I hope he's doing well. And peace and blessings. I know we got to catch up. Give Mama Son a call too while I'm here to get a chance. I'll give a shout out to Brother Bilal Salahuddin and his princess, his queen, if you will. This is Sonia Dolphin Salahuddin. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You dear brother. I want to give a shout out to Brother Eric Carter down in South Carolina. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh down there. What's going on down in South Carolina, man? Can you do something about Tim Scott and Nikki Haley? They're horrible, man. Oh, by the way, Nikki Haley lost in Nevada to none of the above candidates. I thought that was pretty funny. Shout out to my main man, Altaf. Trying all the regions. Oh, okay, yeah. All right, let me see what that. Sharet, shout out. Wa alaikum assalam. Igu, wa alaikum assalam. Kilmanias and Painter Chan. Wa alaikum assalam. Awesome. Assalamu alaikum. All right. Naz and Alim. Wa alaikum assalam. Salima. 1986 joint. Wa alaikum assalam. Mamana, Muslim Fest joint. Shout out to Muslim Fest, man. We haven't worked a long time, man. Great organization. We got Muslim. We got Habib Omar. What's going on, Habib? And Always Computing. Usman Habib, my main man. They're doing a show up in Philadelphia on February the 21st. Make sure you check it out. Shout out to everybody on the show, Omar Regan, Nadia, we got Yasmin Al-Hadi, we got Moses Comic, we got a lot of people, brother Usman Habib, my main man. But Tune, Omar Creed. Okay, well, we got some folks on there. I'm trying to go through. I don't want to include everybody. Okay, so let me dial down just a little bit. What you're seeing now in terms of this whole idea of anti-Semitism is an assault on free speech. The same way to say that someone was Islamophobic was to challenge their right to express themselves. Now you say preach sounds like between a rock and a hard place. That would be correct. Because now anti-Semitism is the bludgeon to make sure that you can't speak out what you say. If I don't agree with you, I just don't agree with you. It doesn't mean that I hate you. It doesn't mean that I want to do harm to you. It means none of those things. But if you attach an emotional vessel to it, called Zionism, which calls into character that I have to overlook the fact that I'm not afraid of you as, I'm not treating you differently because you're Jewish. Literally, the case in America is we don't know until people open their mouths and say, we really don't know. In many cases, for Muslims, maybe African-American Muslims, people didn't know we were Muslims until we stood up and said, we're Muslim, particularly after you left the nation. You didn't wear bow ties and things like that. No final call. There was no, Muhammad speaks. There weren't none of that. And around what you have in the void, if you will, and I want to make sure I state this correctly. What you now have in the void is a people who, again, they are insecure. Again, they're unsuccessful. But now they have a platform. That platform has, in many ways, emancipated a lot of people to be really, really creative when they're not creative. You understand what I'm saying? Like people trying to be creative, they're not creative. Somebody says, I want to paint, but you look at them and go, they can't paint. Someone says, I want to rap, but you look at them, the music plays, clearly they can't rap. But they have the agency of the platform. And what we're looking through in America right now, particularly with Islamophobia, speaking of Dummies, in the Palestine edition, is that you will have people who will speak out on Palestine, be castigated, and be turned around as troublemakers to the people that they're actually trying to fight. Now let me explain fighting for Palestine. A lot of you guys, let me tell you why Islamophobia for Palestine edition is what you're dealing with now. As much and as passionate as we are about free Palestine, all the slogans, let's be real. Let's be real. None of us is loading up the car, and boats, and the planes to go over and fight this war. This is a war. We're not going over to fight this war. It was the same thing back in the 80s with apartheid. That as much as we tested apartheid, as much as I protested, I knew in the heart of things, for me to leave college, go to South Africa, try to figure out where the freedom fighters were, or literally try to understand the culture. Let me throw this out here. Try to understand the culture of the oppression that people were going through. It would take me years. It would take me years. And the proponents of the people who oppressed Palestine, like the proponents of the people who oppressed Native Americans, who oppressed Muslims in India, who oppressed African Americans in the United States, is the fact that they understand that we are in a cultural society where we fight with philosophy. We believe that we can change the laws, which would be meaningful if people were following the law. The danger of Donald Trump and Islamophobia is he knows I can go out and tell people I want a Muslim ban. And he knows that people are not going to show up on his front yard. People are not going to show up at the GOP convention. People are not going to show out wherever he speaks. And I'm not talking about Queen Court. I'm talking about if he's speaking out in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. He doesn't worry about the threat of 10,000 Muslims coming out to address him about this Muslim ban. He doesn't worry about that. Islamophobia, this edition is all about people understanding I can't fight these people, but I can put these ideas out in the public space. And I can let some of the minions that I'm talking about, the ones who are unsuccessful, the ones who are insecure. It's like white folks after slavery who weren't slave owners, who now had to find work. This is their work. This is their vocation. This is their passion. Literally, this is the thing that puts food on their table. And if you begin to look at what we're talking about with Palestine and that, we haven't figured out the formula. Maybe we will, where we start taking food off the table for this particular behavior. In the United States, if you call for a strike, listen to me. If you call for a strike of the Muslim working community in tech, and we said we're going to strike in tech, we're going to strike in education, we're going to strike. If you had a sick out of Muslims, of 3 million people, I believe that this country would listen to what you have to say. Right now, we're not punishing people. We're not taking food off of their table. What we've gotten into, again, is the philosophy. Believing that the political process works. Islamophobia works with dummies because literally they don't have to do anything. They literally occupy space. Now, let me explain it for us, okay? Islamophobia has been around a very long time, okay? The framing, like I said, the framing of the image of people who pray and don't pray a particular way. This moon religion, Mohammedans going back to the day, moon people, has been a strange theory for quite a number of years. People have yet to figure it out. We say, well, what does that mean? It means literally that people have been trying to figure out what to do with Muslims since the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. That movement of compassion, mercy, dealing with the oppressed and the poor has been a disruptive misnomer for years. For years in the United States, Islam is a proponent for the African American that lift themselves up out of poverty, lift themselves up out of poor education, keep them out of jails, make sure that children are not part of a genocidal circle, a generational cycle of failure. And now you begin to believe. America has never forgiven the African American community for finding Islam. Even when it was the Nation of Islam, they found Islam. America has never forgiven it. And to that point, when we talk about Palestine today, there is an absence of black faces. Black faces that speak truth to power, that have the logic, and not only the logic, the proof, if you will, the chain of commission of how we got here. The mindset that said, wait a minute, we've been down this road before. And if we holler, brothers and sisters, if we holler, the media makes sure that nobody hears. If you holler and scream to an audience of 50, it's not like 50,000. It's not like 5,000. And it's not that we're being disproven. It's just that we're being displaced. Over and over. You know, let me throw this out. Over and over, I've been saying, really since we started the show, I said there has to be a mandate for African Americans to separate themselves from people who are unhealthy. The same mandate stands right now for Muslims who must separate themselves from people who are healthy. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was supposed to be at the White House. For the Black History event. I got my invitation, and this is one of the things that bother me. I got a call from the Muslim liaison to the White House to see if I had RSVP for Black History Month. I'm like, hey man, you're supposed to talk to the Muslims. Why are you calling me? And then it hit me. You know, the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration, they need a Muslim Tim Scott. And I couldn't give it to him. You see, on and on, it's different between having a photo out and really sitting down and talking to these people who frame themselves as representatives of the American conscience. They have never represented the American conscience. Everything that's been achieved in the way of fighting oppression has been exactly that, a fight. Nobody realizes or nobody values these conversations until what? Until it can affect their value in some way. Somehow, some way it becomes disruptive to them. Well, knowing that, the thing for Islamophobia for Dummies is this. I said, these people, these Islamophobes, insecurity, number one. Number two, unsuccessful. Number three, they can't deal with disruption. That train that's always coming at the Muslim audience can only move one way. One way. It can't pivot, it can't tilt, it can't move. What we have to do is learn how to duck. What we have to do is put out the right hand and go over to the left. What we have to do is understand, if we know that disruption is the thing they can't do or they can't handle, then we have to do this right there. Call on a boycott. We got 3-some million Muslims. Say we're gonna have a Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said we have a 1 million man march back in the mid-90s. Report it all. I can't tell you how disruptive and beautiful that march was. Because everyone was saying they can't do it. They can't organize. Of course they're going. We had the March on Washington. But here it is, until it happens, it doesn't bother anybody. Guess what? There were people who said that the 1 million man march was, guess what? Anti-Semitic. No, there were Christians there, there were Jews there, there were African Americans there, there were Muslims there. Somehow it was anti-Semitic. You know why? Because they didn't have permission. And to be involved in this permission means that I have to engage with logic. Again, if I don't do what you say, if I don't agree with what you say, somehow I'm involved. Well, here's it. Nobody asked to be validated by these people. back in the mid-90s with the Million Man March. And guess what? It has to be validated now. Now, if we can take that sentiment and make sure that our children know that sentiment, the people in our mass didn't know that sentiment, that we are not a retreat type of religion, we are not a retreat type of people, oppression literally is a communication disease. People believe I have the right to do this to you, and somehow, some way, you acquiesce to me doing it. There's no acquiescence. Over and over and over, and you're gonna find this. Protests don't work. The protests don't work. The protests are the things that they expect. So Islamophobia for Dummies will get upset. Listen, we've had several issues. A young man in Austin, and the guy jumped out, he stabbed his brother, broke his rib. Islamophobia. I talked to you last week about a young girl with a hijab being pushed around with by a boy, and it wasn't his first attempt at bullying Muslims. And we can't run to the cares, people. Care, impact, da-da-da. And I have much respect for them. What people need to know is, let me be honest, if you hear somebody running up on me, I want you to know it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Most of the people I know, if you run up on them, you disrespect me, it's going to be a problem. Because I'm not first thinking about care, I'm not thinking about impact or MDA, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the immediacy of what you're trying to do. And and it bears no fruit for me to be bringing in organizations that don't understand the culture of you trying to press me right here, right now. If I let you walk and come into a protest, I've lost. Think about that. If I let you walk and I let you slide, and I come to you, the damage has been done. You're going to tell, or these people are going to tell their minions, who are just like them, unsuccessful, insecure, can't handle distraction, never can handle disruption. They're going to tell people, hey, the water's good over here, the grass is green over here. This is America. This is America. Palestine is the Israeli version of manifest destiny. Black people are free in paper, in thought, in concept, but police brutality is the manifest destiny of how you keep black people under control. Don't let black people vote. That's the manifest destiny of American society and white supremacy as we know it today. Now, here's the deal. There is hope. There is hope. The hope is that we began to create art. We begin to create and develop leaders, develop leaders that understand that in this little thing of Islamophobia, Zionism, racism, there's a little pin that you pull and the whole thing falls apart. There's a little pin that you pull and the whole thing falls apart. The look that you give and it turns the other way. What that thing is the fact that we have to be demonstratively loud, deliberate, and we have to let people know the bully thing doesn't work. The bullying politics doesn't work, the bullying religion doesn't work, the bullying sexism doesn't work, the bullying on culture doesn't work. You can't beat me with laws. That's what happens on the second tier when they can't beat you right straight up. They go to laws. You see, white supremacy is fearful that we figure out how to discombobulate the role of the law. So, listen, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have been amazing. Again, just kind of think about what I'm talking about. Islamophobia for Dummies. Let me recap. Let me tell you about Islamophobia. Again, number one, extremely insecure. Number two, usually highly unsuccessful. And number three, they can't handle disruption. And let me throw this out because it's Palestine history. History doesn't matter. History doesn't matter. Facts doesn't matter. We just had a president for 4 years tell us that everything was fake news. Forget what you saw. Get your logic. It's fake news because they told you. So when you watch TV, understand what you see on TV, the destruction, the pillaging, genocide that you see on TV. There's another side of that TV where people watching go, I don't see what's wrong with that. They're defending us. I don't see what's wrong with that. Now we're talking about perspective. And here's the funny part. This is pretty funny. I'm going to let you guys so all this stuff I'm talking freely. You know why? Ain't nobody expecting black folks to speak up for Palestine. They're not. You know, you have a bunch of black preachers that stepped to Joe Biden and said, Miss Biden, we need a ceasefire. Joe Biden looked the other way. When he invited a bunch of them to the White House for Black History Month. Well, Black History Month is what? A celebration of achievement through oppression. And a lot of black folk ain't going. And when Eid comes around, none of the Muslims should go. We ain't got a ceasefire. In fact, if we have a ceasefire by Eid, guess what? Don't go anywhere because I need the United States and the people that did the damage, all of them. Zionists, all of them need to rebuild that place. And guess what? Just like black folk in America need reparations, Palestinian brothers and sisters need reparations. My name is Preacher Moss. See you guys on the other side. Remember, Islamophobia, the Dummies is really Islamophobia.